Hey guys, we're getting into our next section of the first unit here, talking about supply and demand. You're going to want these notes. They'll be obviously linked through Google Classroom. This is where you're at. Um, with that being said, as we get into this, if you can get a strong understanding of supply and demand and how these graphs work, it's going to be there. We're going to utilize these this concept as we kind of continue through, probably live about another 60-70% of the course. So super important. Um, let's go ahead and get started. So you're filling these in as we go. Some of it's kind of on your own, um, and you'll kind of see how it goes. It jumps around a little bit, but I'll make sure that I say when that happens. Okay, so we're focused on demand today, and the big thing and where you're writing this is you're writing the definition of demand right here. Is our definition of demand might be a little bit different than what you might originally, you might think like you think demand like want or I really want something. But the definition of demand, as we're going to talk about it, is that we've got to be willing and able to buy something. So not only do we want to buy it, okay, we've also got to have the ability to buy it. Okay, so for example, I'd be very willing to buy like a fancy car, like a Ferrari. Like I would drive a Ferrari if I could afford it, but I am unable to buy that right now with my income. Okay, so um, again, willing but not able in that case. On the flip side, there are some things that some people can't afford. Like maybe somebody is a vegetarian. Well, they're not going to be willing. They, I'm sure, are able to buy something from McDonald's, but they're not willing to buy it. Okay, so you've got to kind of be on both. It's not just necessarily like, oh, I would drive that car if I had the opportunity. Like I've got to be able to buy it in those situations. Okay, so that is an important part of the definition there. All right. Now, what we also know about demand is as the price of a product or a good goes up, all right, the demand for that good is going to go down. Basically, that's just a fancy way of saying as the price gets more expensive, I either don't want to buy it anymore or I lose the ability to buy it. Okay, so whether it becomes too expensive and I don't have the income, whether it becomes too expensive and I choose to buy something else, we're gonna take that as fact. Okay, so we're going to, and it is fact, right? Eventually, something the price goes up so far that we change our behavior. So here's some things that affect how much we can or will demand for certain things. We've already mentioned the real income effect. Okay, obviously our income is going to determine any number of different things and how much we buy of certain things. So it determines what house we live in, what type of car we drive, what type of food we eat, right? And so the income or our income definitely affects what we demand. We also have the difference between, necessity type goods and also luxury goods, or sometimes they're called superior goods, sometimes they're called normal goods. That means that, our demand is going to vary based on our income. So we've kind of talked about like RVs once or twice throughout the course of the first couple weeks here, where RVs are a luxury good. Like if I'm afraid I'm going to lose some income, like the first thing I'm going to stop buying are these luxury or superior or normal goods, depending on the phrasing that the test might ask you. All right. Inferior goods are kind of the opposite. Okay. Inferior goods are things I buy when I'm on a tight budget. Okay, so things that I buy on a tight budget would be like ramen noodles, frozen pizza, maybe fast food. That's if something is an inferior good, it's going to be identified in a test question. Okay, so that's again things I buy when my income either goes down or my income is already low. Whatever has caused that change for me to not have as much income, I'm going to buy more of those inferior goods. All right, and then we also, we've talked about capitalism and things like that. We have lots of substitutions. The substitution effect is going to say, well, if the price of something changes, I'm going to go buy something else. So as the price of Burger King goes up, I'm going to increase my demand for McDonald's, okay, because I'm able to substitute that. If I can substitute something and get a similar utility out of it for a smaller price, a lower price, I'm going to, behave in ways that save me money. Okay, so first things first is we have to draw these demand curves. Now, for the most part, the nice thing is as we draw these, we're just going to draw very basic graphs, and we don't really necessarily need to take a whole bunch of time in labeling with numbers or things like that. Okay, so we're just going to get this, we're just going to use the concept of the demand. And remember what we said, as the price goes up, we stop wanting to buy stuff, right? We either lose the ability or we lose the willingness to buy it. Now, as that price decreases, we're going to want to buy more of it. So our demand curve is going to have this downward slope. Okay, so our y-axis is price, our x-axis is quantity. Again, you could put numbers on there, and as you see these numbers, I'm just going to label it like 5, 10, 15. And I don't know if this is a good set of prices or not. We could label the quantity kind of the same way. And all this says is that as we change the price, so let's just say we change the price from $15. Looks like we demand about 12 or 13 there, right? As we lower that price, we can say, oh, we're going to demand more stuff. Okay, so in that case, it would be 20. All right. So this demand curve, again, remember, it's kind of a concept. It's not like there's a big book of demand curves somewhere in the government where they keep track of all this stuff. We know the demand is true because our income's limited, and we can also make different choices. And when the price changes, we're going to buy more of it if the price goes down, and we're going to buy less of it if the price goes up. Think about it like on Black Friday. Okay, the prices go down, everybody goes shopping because things are cheaper. All right. If you wanted to chart some numbers, okay, we won't spend too much time on it. If you wanted to chart some numbers, okay, you could say that. All right. Now I use different numbers on here. Quantity 5, 10, 15, 20. Price, I did the same, right? As that price goes down, our quantity demanded goes up. Okay, so we could put numbers on there if we wanted to. Again, there's the graph with those particular numbers. As we mentioned, as price changes, we're going to move along this line, okay? And that'll make sense here after we start shifting some things. You'll see what I mean by that. But if our situation doesn't change and just the price goes down, okay, or the price goes up, we're not going to shift our demand curve. That's one of the trickier things to try to remember. All right. Now we can draw a couple things. We can use a couple more concepts here and get even a little bit more complicated. Okay, so notice where you are drawn here. You're going to be down here on your notes. Okay, inelastic demand and elastic demand. For some reason, your notes didn't do exactly what mine did. So you might have to add the elastic demand in there. So make sure you're labeling it correctly. Sorry for that confusion as it transferred into Google Docs. Okay. But we can draw elastic demand and inelastic demand. And it's a pretty simple concept. You just got to kind of remember what the graph looks like. And again, as we mentioned, different products have different amounts of necessity. Okay. And so we can draw that based on slope of our line. I've got my price axis, I've got my quantity axis. I'm going to draw the same thing over here. I've got my price axis, I've got my quantity axis. All right. So our inelastic demand is going to be very vertical. Okay, so my demand curve is going to look something like that. Still downward sloping, should be. Still kind of has this downward slope. I drew it very straight up and down. Sorry. All right. But again, what this is showing is that no matter what the price is, I still buy pretty much the same amount. Okay, so think like gasoline. Like you go to the gas station, you fill up your gas tank based on, how much gas you need, right? Some of us probably put in just $10. Well, that $10, again, based on the price per gallon, we're gonna basically buy as much as we can with that $10. It's hard to buy more gas than we want when it's cheap, and it's hard to buy less gas than we want when it's expensive, right? Because we still got to get from point A to point B. Elastic demand is going to be more horizontal. Okay, and that means that as the price changes, our quantity changes a whole lot. So as the price changes a little, our quantity changes a lot. Okay, So think about things like, well, fast food, like where I have lots of substitutes. Those are going to be things where I change my mind really quickly. And when I go to the grocery store and I kind of focus on things that are on sale, oh, the price went down a little bit, I'm going to buy it today. Oh, it's not on sale, I'm not going to buy it today. Okay, so elastic, I'm sorry, inelastic, I better label these, elastic. Okay. Inelastic, big price change, small quantity change. Elastic, small price change, big quantity change. The way I kind of remember it too is if I can remember how to label these axes, my inelastic curve looks more like an I. Inelastic starts with an I. That's one way I remember it. So again, as you get familiar with these graphs, you can remember small little things like that. They kind of help you walk yourself through the test. All right. So here's your definition. Your elastic demand, I kind of mentioned it throughout the course of me drawing those graphs. So I don't know, things that are, like we said, types of luxury type goods. And don't take luxury as like I use the example of RV, right? But it can be anything that we just kind of buy because we feel like having it that day. All righty. So lots of substitutes. I gave some examples in there, fast food, riding utensils. Again, things that we don't absolutely need, okay? But things that we, I don't know, maybe sometimes like to have and sometimes have when we have a few extra bucks in our pocket. Okay, so inelastic demand is the opposite we mentioned. That's a necessity. The best example is gasoline. You could probably throw like electricity or gas in there as far as like utilities for your home. Um, you could do like school books, right? Whatever you have to pay for, whatever necessity that you have, that is going to be an example of inelastic demand. All right. Now we have some things that we are going to cause our demand curve to shift. Okay, so you're going back to you're going to go back to the back side here of those notes, and we're skipping over supply. We're going to the shifts in the demand curve, and you've got a quick little table down there. We're going to fill out. We're going to talk about what causes our demand to change, which really means our changes our mind. Okay, which or changes what we are willing and able to purchase. Okay, now as we shift these, okay, so go ahead and up in the top of those notes there, you've got a spot where you're going to draw these the shifts in the demand curve. So that's where we're at. Then we're going to go down to the demand shifters down below. Okay, so go ahead and just start yourself off. We've got a quick axis. Set yourself up with a quick axis here where you've got your price on your y-axis and your quantity on your x-axis, and that is going to stay the same forever and ever and ever. Okay, so our price is always going to be the y, the quantity is going to be the x, and to be honest with you, as we go into further graphs, the price axis is almost something to do with price is always on the y-axis. All right, and then I'm going to start us out with a simple demand curve. Okay, so two things can happen. We can either increase our demand. I'm going to label that with a D1, okay, and then I'm going to write increase on here too, just for the sake of visualization. Excuse me while I try to write with my pen here on my screen. Okay, so we're going to increase it, and we moved it to the right. Okay, so one simple way that I remember is as we increase stuff, I use this simple acronym, and again, this is going to hold true for the entirety of drawing these graphs, even in different units with a few different concepts. And it stands for increase right, decrease left. Okay, and like I said, it sounds like ERDL, just one quick way, one simple way that you can kind of remember what's going on. And then if we're going to increase, obviously if we went right to increase, you guys can take the guess, we're going to decrease to the left. Okay, I'm going to label that D2 just for the sake of where we're at. And then I'm going to put a decrease in there as well. Okay, as we go to the left. Now, what this is showing us and what we can assume here is that when we set a price somewhere, so if we're going to set this price, I'm just going to call this price 1. Okay, if we set this price, okay, Based on that price, remember, we're affected, the price is stuck. Okay, we're freezing time, the price is stuck. Well, in a normal demand situation, we're going to demand quantity 1. Okay, that's all it's showing. Okay, if for whatever reason, let's say we make more money, and we're going to get to these shifters here in a second. If we increase our demand, we're going to assume that we're going to demand more stuff, right, based on that price. On the flip side, if we have a smaller income, okay, then we're going to say, and that's just one example, then we're going to say that we're going to demand that much. Okay, so obviously as we make less money, as we have decreases in demand, we demand less quantity. Okay, let's talk about these. You're filling in that table down below. Here are the things that go into the possible shifters. Okay, we'll list them pretty fast. First one is a change in population. We have more people. Again, we kind of talked about these graphs as an individual. We can also take it as a society, okay, or an entire economy. An increase in population is going to result in a shift to the right. Decrease is going to decrease our demand to left. We mentioned a change in income with our example of drawing those. Keep in mind that inferior goods are going to act in the opposite manner. Okay, and we've got to let you know that these goods are inferior. You don't need to take a guess. We've got to let you know those things before we get too far into it. Remember, we're going to give you all the information you need. As we kind of talked about with the production possibility stuff in the past, we freeze time and don't make assumptions. Okay, they never ask us to make assumptions. They're going to give us all the information that we need. We can have a change in taste and preferences. Sometimes things become popular. If things become more popular, obviously we're going to increase our demand. Less popular, we're going to decrease our demand. And any number of those things can cause a fad to occur. Specifically with you guys, like silly bands, 10 years ago or whenever, right? Silly bands were a fad. You guys, well, a lot of people went crazy for silly bands. More historically, Beanie Babies, Tickle Me Elmos. You may not remember those things as much, but silly bands was a pretty significant fad for a whole lot of people well, at least in Elkhart. I don't know about other places. Changes in the price of substitutes. Make sure that you are clear on what occurs. So if the price of a substitute goes down, okay, so margarine and butter is a good example. The demand for butter is going to go down. Okay, so substitutes kind of act, they kind of do the same as what happens. Price goes down, demand goes down. The price of Pepsi goes up, the demand for Coca-Cola is going to go up. Okay, because I can get the same value, the same utility from that substitute. If I can save money doing it, I'm going to try to do that. Complements kind of behave in the opposite. These are things that go together. So an obvious one would be peanut butter and jelly. You could say like shoes and shoelaces. You could say breadsticks and marinara sauce. So like for example, is let's just say that a pizza place said that we're going to give you a buy one get one free for breadsticks. Well, I'm going to go buy one set of breadsticks and get some free. Well, so now the breadsticks are cheaper, right? Because I'm getting more for the same price. So breadsticks are cheaper. Well, I've got to eat more marinara sauce with it. So I'm going to buy that marinara sauce with it. This is what grocery stores do when they put stuff on sale, right? They're going to try to put hamburger buns on sale for like 50 cents off, and they're going to try to get you to buy the expensive hamburger, right? This is how they get more money out of your pockets. They're trying to play with your demand curve, so to speak. The last one. The last one is a change in expectations. Okay, and this is if I think the price is going to go up or go down in the near future, I'm going to behave in a different way today. Okay, so like for example, if you've ever heard like, hey, gas prices are going up, and so like you better stop and get gas today if you want to save some money. The prices, you're expecting the price to go up tomorrow, so I'm increasing my demand right this minute, right? Just like if also the price is going to go down tomorrow, you're going to do the opposite if you can. You're going to try to save your money. People don't go shopping on the day before Thanksgiving, right? They go shopping on the day after Thanksgiving because they know everything's going to be cheaper. Okay, so they're expecting the price to go down tomorrow. They're going to not go shopping today. Okay. Sometimes goods can be considered unrelated, independent. Obviously, in those types of situations, if that question were to come up, it doesn't necessarily have to be something that it doesn't have to influence something. I've got some examples. But the price of butter isn't going to affect the price of golf balls or the demand for golf balls, potatoes, cars, bananas, watches. I don't know. You could list a whole bunch of things. To be honest, they really don't. They really don't ask you too many of those situations, but those situations do exist. Okay, those are my notes here for you today. We'll continue with supply in the next lecture. Make sure you watch the video notes for instructions on how to complete this practice, and we'll keep moving forward. Make sure you're staying up with all these things.